This is a recording about the Alice developer environment. This is the opening screen from Alice. As you can see, it opens with a palette allowing you to make some choices about whether you want to see a tutorial that's done from the Alice folks, or you want to open a recent program, or templates. Templates is generally where we start, and there are some examples and some other things available too. But these are the 6 templates. So I'm going to choose the grass template to open it. And we're now in the Alice development environment. There are some drop-down menus at the top of the screen. Probably the only one you'll use much is File, because this is where we save a world. We can also export the code from printing here, as well as some other things. Then you've got an undo and a redo button, as well as a trash can that allows you to drag and drop to delete things, but you can also right click and delete. And then way over on the right, the clipboard, which allows you to copy and paste. And then the rest of the screen is divided up into panels. The area right here is called the object tree. By default, when you open a new world, you have the camera, light, and the ground. You have to imagine that you are the camera looking into the scene, and that's the position, although you can change that. There's some buttons here that allow us to adjust the camera. Under that is the actual details panel, which has 3 tabs. One is for properties, one for methods, and one for functions. So if I click on properties now, I'm seeing the world properties. But if I click on the camera, then I see camera properties and ground properties. So it depends on what's selected as to what you'll see down here. Same thing is true for the methods. If the camera is selected, then these are camera methods, but if I select the ground, it's ground methods. Now these are known as the common methods, so all of the objects have pretty much the same basic methods. To the right of that particular pane, the detail panel, this is known as the editing panel or the method editor. This is where I'm going to drag and drop tiles from the left here over to this pane, and this determines my executable statements in Alice. We have some structures down at the bottom, including comments over on the far right. And also we can create variables and parameters if we're passing to other functions or methods in the case of object-oriented. Then this is my scene, and then this is the events pane where I can create new events. By default, they'll always be the first event here. When the world starts, do world my first method. And you can see that that's what this tab has here. So this is the first method in my program. So the first thing we have to do is to set up the scene. So you click the Add Objects, the green button here, and it changes the screen so that we are in the object editor screen. And we have galleries down here of objects that are created, and we can choose from these various galleries what objects we want actually in our Alice world. You can go online. If you click the up arrow here, you get a choice of the local gallery or a web gallery, and there are more objects located on the web gallery, but I'm back in the local. I want to choose, and these, by the way, are in alphabetical order. I want to choose the white rabbit, and the white rabbit is in the animal gallery, so I'm going to click animals. And then in the galleries, the objects are in alphabetical order. So white rabbit is going to be down at the far end, W. And so I'm scrolling on down here till I find the white rabbit. Here he is. One way that I can get the white rabbit into my scene is to just simply drag and drop. I have a little more control with where he is in the scene and the perspective in the scene, so I'm going to drop him right here. And then I could either use the up arrow here on this folder to go up a level, or I could just click on local gallery to get back to the galleries, because I want Alice and she's in the people gallery. So I'm going to drag down here and find the people, and here's Alice. If you double click on the object you want in your scene, you get a dialog box, and you just click on Add Instance to the world, and there's Alice. Now, in this particular view, we also have a set of buttons up here, and we actually have a lot more. We have more controls that we could turn on. A lot of these we'll talk about later, so right now let's just deal with the basic ones. And I have move objects freely, move up and down, left and right, forward and backward, tumble, which is any direction, size, and copy. I'm in single view, and I can also change that to a quad view, which allows me to see things from the top, front, right, as well as my original view in quad view. So I can tell that they're standing on the ground about in the same place, although Alice is standing a little bit behind the rabbit. So I could move Alice and line her up. I'm just dragging and dropping and then go back to single view. I do want to change a little bit about the scene and about my objects here. And what I want to do is, first of all, turn Alice. So I'm clicking on her, and I want to turn her a little bit to her right. So she's going to be facing the white rabbit, or close to facing it. And I want the white rabbit to be facing a little bit forward and a little right there. And then I want to show you that you actually can move the parts to the object. And there's a couple of ways I can get to the parts, but I do need to put a checkbox in Affect Subparts. Over here, if I look at my object tree, there's a plus here, which means if I click on the plus, I'm seeing the parts of the white rabbit. And in fact, even his right arm has more parts. So his forearm has more parts. So I can even drill down to his hand, which I could select here, but it's kind of hard sometimes to do it with the mouse. Lots of times it's easier to do it over here in the object pane. But what I really want is this whole arm. So there's the bounding box. These yellow lines are now around his entire left arm. So I want to move that forward just a little. So I'm choosing the Move Forward tool, and I'm going to drag with my mouse just a bit so his arm comes forward. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the other arm. So I've got the bounding box, same tool, forward and backwards. So I'm going to move this arm. Whoa, I'm on the ground. Move this arm a little bit forward. Then I want Alice's head to turn, but I want that to turn left and right. I want her to move just her head just slightly forward, about right there. So I have now set up my scene, so I can click Done, and that takes me back into my editor. And I'm going to begin dragging tiles so that we actually can make our objects do something. I want to start with Alice, so I click on her, and that selects her. And I actually want to move her forward. So I'm going to drag the tile here that says Alice Little Move. And you can drop the tile when it turns green, but when it's red, you are not in the correct space. So I'm looking for it. There it is, green. And then I get what direction do I want her to move. I want her to move forward. How far? I think about 1 meter. So I'm going to choose 1 meter. When she moves forward, after she moves forward 1 meter, I want the white rabbit, so I've got to select him to get his methods. I want him to say, so I'm going to get a white rabbit say and drop it right under Alice's move. And I have hello and goodbye as defaults, but I'm going to choose other, and I'm going to have him say, where are you going? And this becomes a cartoon bubble out of his mouth when I actually run the animation. And then I want Alice, so I've got to click Alice again, and I can click her here, or I could find her here in the pane and just click there, which also gives me the bounding box. And I want her to turn and face the white rabbit, and there actually is a turn to face method here. So Alice Little, turn to face. When I drop it under, it says turn to face what? The white rabbit, the entire white rabbit. And then I want Alice to say to the white rabbit, so I need an Alice say. Not where am I going or hello or goodbye, so I have to click other. She's going to the Mad Hatter's tea party. Now, this is a sequence. Everything is in order. So I'm going to play it, and it'll execute one method, one statement after another in this method, my first method. So you can see how we can use the objects in the Alice environment and make them do things with their methods. And of course there are properties as well that we could change for all of these, and we'll discuss more of those as we move through the semester. This is the end of this short tutorial telling you how to use Alice, but I am going to save the file. So I'm going to do a File, Save World, and it's going to put it in my documents. I'd rather have it on the desktop. So I'm going to save it here, and I'm going to call it Mad Hatter, and save it. Saves it, and I'm going to close it.